Transparency is the thread that holds all the aspects of the Paris Agreement together so that the Paris Agreement can succeed. I want to highlight today that transparency is much more than reporting. It's above all the basis for successful climate action. The quality of data and information that countries collect as part of an effective transparency framework allows to make climate action on the ground effective. It allows the planning, it enables accountability, and it enables the engagement of stakeholders. That is central to the success of the Paris Agreement. It's central to the effectiveness of the nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. Planning, implementing, and reporting on NDCs, all of that is transparency. So that means you start off by developing targets that are ambitious but achievable. It means designing the policies and measures and tracking their implementation and mobilizing resources for their implementation. It means integrating all these actions into national planning processes. And of course, it includes the reporting part. Reporting at the national level, for instance, to national parliaments, and internationally, so that the international process is aware of what is happening in each country and other countries know what's going on. The evaluation of the data that's collected as part of an effective transparency process allows to strengthen climate action further, and that's an essential part of the NDC update. So let me give an example from the energy sector. The energy sector is a sector where the world is seeing a fundamental transformation, a shift towards renewable energy. That needs to be driven by policies. Feed-in policies, for instance, are instrumental in enabling renewable energy for the power sector. Transparency can help to estimate the greenhouse gas emissions reduced or avoided by replacing fossil fuels with renewable electricity. Transparency can help to estimate the cost of implementing these policies and measures. And very important, transparency helps to make the link to development impacts, to ensure that the positive impacts towards sustainable development are maximized and that negative impacts dealt with. And that is the link to a just transition process. For instance, when you shift to renewable energy, jobs will be lost that have been in the sector supporting fossil fuel energy. But at the same time, new jobs will be created. And a just transition process needs to manage that, to ensure that the job creation counterbalances the jobs lost and the transition is supported through training and all steps that are required. And of course, last but certainly not least, all of these processes and all of that data is essential to mobilize finance. And that goes beyond the public finance, since when talking about renewable energy, you talk about globally more than 80% of finance coming from private sources. And those require a credible framework of data to demonstrate the results of the financing that is invested in renewable energy projects. So I think this all has illustrated that transparency is not a one-time exercise. It's a continuous process. It's a continuous cycle from planning, implementation, to monitoring and evaluation of progress, and then using that as a basis to improve, to adjust the approach, which is the very core of the NDC cycle. Countries have made commitments. They have moved on to implementing those. As part of the transparency process, they are monitoring and evaluating those efforts. And then in the next step of the cycle, they can strengthen the NDC in a way to build on the successful parts and improve on those elements that were not successful. All of that is driven through stakeholder engagement. Climate action needs to be a collective and a collaborative process. And the same applies to finance. Financial institutions are also stakeholders, albeit a very important part of that stakeholder infrastructure. So all of this primarily means that transparency should first and foremost be built for a domestic process. Making domestic climate action effective is the primary objective. And once that is in place, countries will have all the data necessary for reporting to the international community. It is the same data that is required under the BTR as will be required for the NDCs and for the upcoming NDC update. NDCs that are based on evidence can be effective, they can be ambitious, and above all, they will become reality and then contribute to global climate action. So reporting is a very important part of that, since climate change is a global challenge and it needs the engagement of the global community at large. One country sees that other countries are taking action, it's much easier for them to also mobilize action at home. So that is an important aspect, but transparency first and foremost is a driver for climate action at the national level.